In this video, I'm going to show you how to do the ohmic test for a Fire-Lite FCPS-24FS8 booster panel. And you could see as the different models, they marked this one 24FS8. So it's the FCPS series. So a short preamble. In 2019, they updated the code and changed how we do battery testing. So 2016 editions and older was primarily doing voltage testing and load testing. And then in 2019, they added temperature testing and ohmic testing for semi-annual testing. So now the whole process is you do a temperature test semi-annually, you do a voltage test semi-annually, you do an ohmic test semi-annually, and load testing got bumped to 3 years. So you don't do the load test till 3 years. And when you do an ohmic test, you're either measuring the internal resistance or the internal conductance of a battery. And what you're supposed to do is whenever you put in new batteries, in addition to putting on the install dates, so you know when they expire, you also are supposed to you're also supposed to do a ohmic test and notate either the internal resistance or conductance. And that's going to be your baseline measurement. And then every 6 months after that, you're going to take a measurement again, a new reading, and you're going to measure it against your baseline. If you don't have a baseline to work off of, you could go with the manufacturer's recommendation for the test. I don't do that. I don't personally do that. I would prefer to go off the baseline test. So these batteries don't have it. They just have the date, but I'm going to do the process anyway. So I have my meter here. My meter measures internal resistance. So if I do a baseline reading with my internal resistance test and I note it down, any future tests that I do, if the internal resistance test deviates more than 40% from the original baseline, then I would fail the battery. And vice versa, if I did conductance, which is the other way to measure it, if it deviated more than 30%, I would fail the battery. So it's 40% deviation for resistance and 30% deviation for conductance. So my meter does internal resistance. So that's what I would be looking for. So I'm gonna take these batteries hopefully down. So I'm just gonna lay them down like that, make it easy for myself. So I have my loop here, so it's two 12 volt 7 amps. So I have my loop. So together they're 24 amps. So I'm just going to remove one side at a time. And then we should get our little battery trouble light in a second. But I'm going to measure one battery. I'm going to do the ohmic test. And then I'm going to do the other side. So I'm going to put my clips on. All right, so there's our trouble. So we have a battery trouble. So I'm going to put the black to black. Hopefully. And then I'm going to put red to red. I'm going to power on. So you can see, hopefully, I'm doing my test. So my meter does load test as well as resistance. So I could select the amperage. So these are 7 amps. So I'm going to change it to 7 amps. Oops, too far. Oh, there we go, 7 amps. I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to run the test. And like I said, it's going to give me my numbers and then my internal resistance. So I'm going to hit test. So I have 528 ohms, which is very high, milliohms. And I have 12% capacitance. So these batteries are pretty well worn out. I have a retest feature. So I'm going to hit that. Yeah, now we're at 500. So I'll just reclip these just to make sure. Just to make sure, because it's really high resistance. These batteries have been in service for longer than 3 years. So I'm sure that that's part of it. They're just old. Yeah, so we're still at 500. So we're really high on the milliohms, and like I said, we're at 12%. We're gonna know the capacitance right now, but right now we're at 500 milliamps. That's what the M stands for next to the omega sign, milliamps. I'm sorry, milliohms. Milliohms, I meant milliohms. And then on the side I have my voltages, but we're gonna ignore all that. So this is really high. Anything over like 100 is really high because it measured in milliohms. But let's say hypothetically I didn't have a baseline, right? Which I don't have right now. If I were to use this as my baseline, let's say, let's make it 50. Let's make it 10. Make it really small. So let's say I have 10 milliohms, because that's usually out of the factory. They're pretty low as my baseline. If it's 500 now, that's well beyond failure. That's well beyond a 40% increase. That's significantly high. If I was at 10% milliohms and it went up 40%, that'd be like 14 milliohms. If it doubled, it'd be 20% million or 20 milliohms, right? So it's gone well above that 40% threshold. So, but as you can see, the capacity is really low for these batteries. They were installed in I think early 2020 or maybe like mid 2022, and it's 2025 now, so they've been in service for 3 years. But I would fail these because this is above 100 milliohms, which is really high, and this is 500, so it's like 5 times that. So I'm gonna go ahead and fail these batteries, but we're going to test our other battery because we test them both. So I'm gonna plug this guy back in. Of course, I'm doing this one-handed while filming. There we go. One of these days, I'm gonna get a fucking head mount camera or something. Make it easier on myself doing these videos. All right, so we're gonna put our clips on. Again, these batteries are greater than 3 years old, so I'm not surprised that their amperage is so high. Okay, so again, just to show you the battery. So it's already set to 7 amp because it saves it. You can even see the voltage on is 12.81. It's below 13, so it's really low. But we're gonna hit the test. Get our. So we're at 443 milliohms. So again, really high. Again, anything over 100, I'd probably just fail it because it's really high for milliohms. So we're at 16% capacitance, but again, we're going to ignore that for right now. We're just looking at milliohms. So this is really high. So again, let's say hypothetically, when I initially installed these batteries, I did my baseline test, and the baseline test was 10 milliohms. If it's over 400, that's a significant. That's well beyond 100%, 200, 300, 400%. That's well beyond that. It's way too high. Even if I was at 100 milliohms and it's at 400 milliohms, it'd be like a 300% increase. So it's well beyond that 40% threshold. So I would fail these batteries. But since I don't have a baseline to work off of, I would have to go with the manufacturer's recommendation, which again, I wouldn't do personally, but just as an example, these come out of the factory pretty low, like around 10 or 20 milliohms. So this is still like just a significant increase above internal resistance. And internal resistance, is just how difficult it is for the electricity to flow through the battery, and vice versa. Internal conductance is how easy it is for the battery to flow, or the electricity to flow through the battery. So these have high resistance and low capacitance as well. So these batteries would fail. So we'll take that off, and then my battery just powers off with that. And then we could plug these back in. Yeah, so just to show, these were put in. Yeah, so as of filming, it's December 2025, and these are put in 2022. So it's over that 3-year mark. So it's kind of getting to that point where we could recommend them for getting replaced. And with the internal resistance being so high, I'm going to recommend these be replaced. But anyway, that is how you do the internal resistance test. I'm sorry, the ohmic test for the Fire-Lite FCPS-24FS8 fire alarm panel.